We now turn to the subsection on equality. Now when it comes to equality, our main concern is with moral equality. That is the view that people are, at least initially, morally equals, and hence entitled to the same treatment. This, of course, is consistent with people being treated differently based on the principle of relevant difference. For example, if a person by their actions is good, they can be treated differently than someone who by their actions is bad. Now also of concern is what's known as legal equality. And this is similar to moral equality, although in regards to the law, obviously enough. Legal equality is a view that people are initially legal equals before the law. And as with moral equality, this is consistent with different treatment based on the principle of relevant difference. For example, if someone is a murderer, it would be acceptable to punish them because their actions, namely murdering someone or someone's, would provide a relevant difference from the way one treats someone who does not murder people. Now, the nature of equality, not surprisingly, is extensively debated because there are so many different definitions of equality. For example, we may consider equality of opportunity. This is very similar, to use an analogy, to the equality of the starting line of a race. The idea basically is that everyone has a chance, at least in theory, at the start of a race, to succeed, because you start in the same place, you have to run the same course, and you finish in the same place. And so people can succeed or fail based on their capabilities. And so the equality of opportunity, people are entitled to the same opportunities, but earned inequality is morally acceptable. So going back to the analogy of the race, if someone trains really hard and has lots of natural ability, and they run very well and win, well, even though they have an unequal position relative to someone who came in last, it seems reasonable to accept that they earn that position. So it's equality of opportunity, which may have rather unequal outcomes. Now there's also equality of treatment or consideration, that people are entitled to equal treatment or consideration, perhaps within certain limitations. Take for example voting. In theory, everyone who can vote, their vote counts the same amount, namely 1. So people have the equal treatment and consideration, one person, one vote. People's votes, at least again in theory, don't count any more than anyone else's. Now, of course, there's also a notion of, say, perfect equality, where people are compelled to be exactly alike. And there is, of course, a classic sci-fi story called Harris and Bergeron, in which society in this fictional sci-fi United States is set up so that people are forced to be equal. So if someone is particularly graceful, they're encumbered with heavy weights to take away their grace. Or if someone is particularly intelligent, they have a thing implanted in them that interrupts their thoughts. Or in order to ensure that everyone looks alike, people are masked and they wear, shapeless clothing. And so in that sci-fi story, there's in a way total enforced equality for everything. And not surprisingly in the story, the hero Harrison Bergeron rebels against this, but he is tragically in the end killed. Now, many of the debates about equality focus on, the moral and legal status of equality, what exactly is meant by things being equal. Now, 3 of the areas to look at include gender equality, racial equality or ethnicity equality, and lastly, species equality. Now, not surprisingly, there's an abundance of questions about equality, such as, what is equality? Are there different types of equality? If so, what are they? There's the question of, is equality possible? If so, what types are possible? If not, why not? And of course, associated with this is the notion of inequality, which would involve the questions such as, what is inequality? Are there different types of inequality? If so, what are they? Does inequality exist? If so, what would be examples of inequality? Why does inequality exist? And of course, the final 2 questions, is inequality wrong? And if it is wrong, what, if anything, should be done to put an end to inequality? And that brings us to the end of the introduction to equality, and next we'll turn to looking at Mary Wollstonecraft and gender equality, or inequality, if you prefer.